Now it's time to explain every line of code that we have written. To use Redux Toolkit, you have to implement 4 steps. Step number 1 is creating the store. As you see here, that's our store file that we have created. We just need to import this function. Configure store is a function from Redux.js Redux Toolkit. Okay? And you just need to use this function, configure store, and put inside it our reducer object, and inside this reducer we have our reducers that we have created, and those reducer we use them to update the state. There is a very important notice. That key here, that's something like the name of the reducer. When you are using useSelector, you have to put that name. For example, if we change that, for example, to AAAA, for example, you have to go to useSelector hook and change that to AAA2 and press save, so you don't have any problems. Okay, so you have to know that that key is very important to use. Okay, those 2 lines are TypeScript, that to export the type of the state and that to export the type of dispatch. If you're not familiar with TypeScript, don't worry, we have a great course that we're gonna upload it in this channel, so don't forget to subscribe and follow me. That was step number 1, creating our store. Step number 2, connecting Redux with React. If you go to app.tsx or app.js if you're using JavaScript, you'll notice that we have to implement a very important step here. And this step is connecting Redux with React. Using that package, React Redux, this package is responsible for connecting each other. You just have to import the provider and wrap all of React code inside that provider. And this provider take a property called store. And you have to put the store that you have created here. You have to put it inside that provider. Okay, that was step number 2, the connecting Redux with React Native. Step number 3 is creating your reducer. The reducer is the function that's responsible for update the global state. First, you need to import that createSlice function from Redux.js Redux Toolkit to allow us to create our reducers. And that's the payload action type we have just imported from Redux.js, this wonderful package. We just import it instead of creating it. Okay, we have here an interface. Interface also is a TypeScript. If we just comment it, we will not have any issues because it's TypeScript issues, so don't worry about it. So that interface, it's define the state, the type of our state. For example, we have here the value. The value here is number. We cannot make it any type, not number. For example, if we just make it string, we have here a problem, TypeScript issue, that TypeScript is not assignable to type number because that have to be a number. Okay, and that cannot be a number too. If we just make it a number, test name is gonna complain too, because TypeScript is complain because we have defined it as a string. But if we just type here a number, now we don't have any issues. Okay, if we go down here, we have here our createSlice function. As I've mentioned before, it's a function provided by Redux Toolkit to simplify the process of defining the Redux slice. Okay, it takes object as argument that had a name, initial state, and reducers. That name is a string that identifies the slice. In this case, it's name counter. Okay, this name to identifies this slice. So that slice, the name of it is counter. Okay, that's the initial state that we have taken here because we want to make some changes on this initial state, the value and test name. And you can add any global state that you want here because this slice is taking it. The third property here called reducers, and those are our reducers, and reducers are JavaScript functions that's responsible for updating the state. For example, this increment is the function that's responsible for make the state.value, update this value of 10 to increase just 1. So if you just press here, it adds 1. What if you just make that, for example, 5? When we press here, we're gonna increment by 5. Look, 555. And that's another reducer called decrement. And what does it do? It returns our state of value, that value, and it decreases it by 1. You can do whatever you want. For example, you can change the name. For example, state.name equals to HeroDev. Okay? When we press decrement, it will increase the number with 1 and it will change the state.testName to HeroDev. Look. So in our reducer, you can do whatever you want to that state. You can do whatever you want. Just type state dot and you will appear all the states that you have put here, and you can do whatever you want. Easy, isn't it? The third reducer here is increment by amount. Look at that. What if I just put here 1 and press an increment by amount? Here, that's the action name. It increased by 1. Okay, what if just type here 4? It increment by 4. Okay, what if just have here the action.payload? Action.payload. It will increment by the payload. What is the payload? Let's see here in home screen. That's our action, increment by amount. Any number you put here will increment with that number. For example, let's make 10 and let's press. It increment by 10. Let's change that to increment by action payload. Okay. Any payload that you put here, it will increment by that payload. Because we don't pass here any numbers, but we pass here the action.payload. Okay. The last 2 lines of that file, we just here export our action creators, and those are increment, decrement, increment by amount, and we can distract them from counterslice.actions, because this counterslice has an actions. Look, counterslice.actions. It has actions, case reducers, name, get, initial state. Now we just select the actions to distract our actions creators. So if you just counterslice.actions, look, decrement, increment, increment by amount. Those are the actions that you can select any one of them, but we just distract them from that counterslice.actions. And finally, we just export our counterslice. This export is very important because we are using multiple reducers, and we just put them inside that store. We have to import it like that. We have to import it like that and export it like that. Our last step is dispatching and selecting the state. If you want to select the state, you just use the useSelector hook, and that's from React Redux. Just use useSelector and put your state, and inside that state, just pick the state that you want. We have here only one state called counter. This key, as I have mentioned before, just give it from that store, from that key. It should be that key, okay? That's the useSelector to pick our global state. Now we have here another hook called useDispatch. That's to dispatch the actions. Those actions, increment, decrement, increment by amount. And we just create a function like that and put dispatch and put our action here to use our Redux actions. I hope I explained that lesson well. If you have any troubles or any issues, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in next lessons.